I got that California. I got that
Is Dragon Ball GT canon? Is Dragon Ball Heroes canon? Well, what about Dragon Ball Super? When you're in the Dragon Ball fanbase, there is no shortage of a mixture between ignorance and confusion when it comes to this topic. The more I hear people talk about the canon debate, the more I'm convinced that I should make this video. And there is nothing wrong with being ignorant and not knowing everything. Some people in any community will always try to shame you for not knowing the thing that they're talking about. This type of vicious mentality out there ends up making you not want to ask out of fear of looking like an idiot. I mean, as if those people were born with this knowledge. But in this video, I'll aim to explain so many things that will shed light and obliterate those fools who don't know what the canon word actually means. So, what is canon in Dragon Ball? In fact, what does the word canon even mean? It is a simple yet complicated thing to address when it pertains to our beloved Dragon Ball franchise. This lack of understanding of what it means has caused for some serious cancer in our community, as not many use the term correctly, and even worse, they only use it in negative connotations that don't lead to any fruitful discussions at times. So before we define what is canon, we have to first define and address what it doesn't mean. Now, before I start, I must say, for the people who have been watching my channel over the years, I don't claim to have some sort of divine authority on the show. My uncle doesn't work for Toriyama, so I naturally cannot tell you something that is impossible to find out. All I can do is give you a fair and critical analysis of this topic. First of all, canon doesn't mean something is bad.
Ew.
It doesn't mean something is poo-poo. That term isn't used to discredit the quality of a product or story based on whether it's canonical or not. In fact, some of the best characters or stories can be non-canon to the original material. For example, the character of Gogeta that was shown in Fusion Reborn is not canon to the original show in spite of the fact that Gogeta is incredibly cool, and his existence does actually make sense. In addition, a fan favorite move, which is Goku's Super Dragon Fist, isn't canon either, yet it's something that almost everyone loves and accepts as one of Goku's best moves ever. So when people slag off GT for being non-canon, you're not really criticizing the show. Whether GT is canon or not doesn't change its quality. Also, the conception of Dragon Ball Super did not make GT non-canon like some people think. So really, if you're someone who think non-canon material is bad material, then really you shouldn't watch any of the first 13 DBZ movies, or any of the filler content in general. In fact, don't watch the anime, just read the manga, because according to you, you shouldn't enjoy any Dragon Ball content if it's not canon. So now that we established what canon doesn't mean, let's take a look at the guidelines of what being canon is. So, to make things sweet and clear, let's define what canon is. If I would define canon in the most obvious and clear-cut way, it would be original content made by an original creator that is part of an original story. These three components are what makes a story canon. And it's why the Dragon Ball manga written by Akira Toriyama is 100% definitive canon, as it's original content made by an original creator in Akira Toriyama that is part of an original story. Therefore, Dragon Ball material that deviates from the original source material is not canon. So anything that is not part of the manga has to check these 3 points in order to be 100% canon. This is what I call the canon test. So let's take Dragon Ball Z Movie 9, BoJack Unbound. For instance, in spite of its convenient time placement of being after the Cell games, BoJack Unbound cannot be canon even if it could easily fit the timeline, for the simple fact that it fails the canon test. So let's try this. Is it original content? Yes. Is it made by the original creator? No. Akira Toriyama is not the one who wrote any of the first 13 movies. So is it part of the original story? No, because these events were never recognized by the actual characters at any point in the series. So any Dragon Ball anime content that deviates from the original story is known as filler content, as in spite of the anime being a faithful adaptation of the manga, some scenes and even characters aren't actually in the manga. Also, and contrary to some wild and weird belief, Akira Toriyama, the author of Dragon Ball, in no shape or form does the animation of Dragon Ball that you're seeing on your TV screen. He doesn't produce or voice act either. I know, shocking. What he does instead is create his own story with his own characters. And Toei Animation, as the name suggests, are the company that took his work and adapted what's in the books into the screen and brought these characters into life. And the process of doing so, they have included some of their own characters and scenes and even straight up entire episodes that are completely filler. For example, the episode where Goku falls off Snake Way and descends into hell is a filler scene. It never happened in the manga, as Goku never fell in the manga. He was only told that falling off Snake Way will result into severe consequences that may lead him to not being able to escape it. The importance of knowing why this is filler and non-canon is to avoid confusion later on when you see hell in the show, and understand this isn't a plot hole, but rather what you have seen before in that episode is filler. Also, filler in anime isn't as disruptive or repulsive as some people may believe, as filler content is mostly used as breathing space in the story. This simultaneously helps with two things: give Akira Toriyama, who was on tight schedule, time to draw and work on the manga, and two, give some characters some time to shine and develop. We have seen filler scenes in the Saiyan saga pertaining to the character of Gohan and his development into a fighter that really help the viewer understand and sympathize with the character's emotions and struggles. Filler can also add a flavor of comedy, adding interesting interactions and comedic scenes that humanizes them to an extent. Also, contradictory enough to what I said earlier, filler can also be a good way to expand the lore of the franchise. Take for instance the Otherworld Tournament arc where we see Goku meeting the other Kais of the universe. These ideas of how the world of Dragon Ball works is actually by Toriyama himself. He helped facilitate these ideas and gave them to Toei Animation to include it in this filler episode. So while the episodes aren't canon, the notes themselves that he gave are. And this goes to our next point. Toriyama's interviews help filling in gaps and explaining some crucial information about his story. These details, in spite of not being in the manga, are still considered canon, as Toriyama is simply adding context and expanding on his own story without fully contradicting the source material. Therefore, comments and interviews are considered to be official canon material. Other canon material can also be side notes and also magazines, such as the Super Exciting Guide, which has a Super Saiyan multiplier in them. These multipliers are actually facilitated by Akira Toriyama himself. The Daizenshu is also a very reliable source, as it closely documents the work of Akira Toriyama to great accuracy. I wouldn't say 100%, but not everything you see in the Daizenshu is canon. However, it's a lot more reliable than any worthless headcanon you would see from some random ass blog. What is headcanon? This is something you've probably heard before, and if you haven't heard what a headcanon is or don't know what it entails, headcanon means it's your own interpretation. It is your own way of justifying events that occurred in the show that the author did not detail. It is also an imagination of how some certain elements of the show work. Some headcanons are very popular and accepted by a large group of people. For example, a popular headcanon was used in the community was the reason behind Goten and Trunks achieving Super Saiyan so effortlessly. Some, including myself, used to believe it had to do with the Super Saiyan genes they've inherited, as they were both conceived at a point of the series where their parents already achieved that form. However, Akira Toriyama has recently mentioned that Saiyans who have a large number of S cells have an easier time to unlock the form.
Yes, naturally, it's a Super Saiyan bargain sale.
So events in the anime that isn't in the manga are anime filler. However, calling these events non-canon isn't a way of saying they're pointless. They're just extra content like I mentioned, and you can enjoy them nonetheless. But the question on a lot of people's mind is, why is it so important to identify what's filler? And why can't we just enjoy anime as it is and not worry about what's filler and what's not? The only reason why we need to identify what's canon and what's not is to avoid contradictions, as filler often deviates from what the author does. For example, movie 8, where it features Mastered Super Saiyan 1 Goku and Gohan going against Broly, Gohan was severely weaker compared to his anime counterpart. If you remember, in the anime, Super Saiyan 1 Gohan was said to have a higher power level than Goku. And this is just one of many examples why we need to identify what's filler or non-canon. Not to suggest something is bad, but to be factual when talking about Dragon Ball without spreading misinformation. As in other Dragon Ball material, characters can scale very differently. That's why it's really tricky at times to find out who's stronger when comparing filler characters. Now, I can definitely get into much deeper detail on how characters scale in non-canon material. However, I myself would start deviating from the actual purpose of this video, so maybe I can save that for a future topic. However, since we identified what's filler in anime and non-canon, let's talk about each show and discuss if it's canon or not. Okay, so starting off with the most obvious, the Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z show is canon. Dragon Ball GT isn't canon, and it wasn't written by Akira Toriyama. Dragon Ball GT is its own thing and it's canon to the Dragon Ball Z anime. It isn't canon to the manga, and it borrows concepts from anime filler and also shows movie villains in its anime. It also isn't fan-made either, like some people proclaim, but it's still part of the franchise whether you like it or not. Dragon Ball Heroes and Super Dragon Ball Heroes are promotional material to the Dragon Ball Hero games, and I would personally say it's the least legitimate out of any of the Dragon Ball anime shows, for the very fact that it doesn't seem to concern itself for making any damn sense. It's just supposed to be fun and engaging. There's a lot of mixed opinions about Heroes, but I'd say if you enjoy it, then that's all that matters, I guess. Now, of course, some movies that we discussed and video game stories like the Xenoverse campaign and Dragon Ball Z Fighters are non-canon stories. Even if some of those characters are ideas from Toriyama, then it's still non-canon. Fanfiction and abridged material are also non-canon. As much as it pains me to say this, but Weezy F. Broly isn't a real thing. Episode of Bardock was written by Koyama, so it isn't technically canon. However, Akira Toriyama incorporated the character Bardock in his manga, so the character itself is canon. And this brings us to Dragon Ball Minus. I'm very reluctant to say it isn't canon because of how terribly written it is, and the obscene amount of plot holes it generates. It saddens me to say this, but it's actually canon to a degree. Well, it's because Akira Toriyama himself considers it to be canon, along Jaco the Galactic Patrolman. Now, as for Dragon Ball Super, I won't lie, this is a bit of a headache to me. And I know someone will be like, oh, what am I talking about? Dragon Ball Super is obviously canon. Well, my answer to that is, which Dragon Ball Super are you talking about? There's literally 3 different iterations of it. Each of them is their own canon, technically. There is the manga written by Toyotaro, there is the anime by Toei Animation, and also the movies. Though to be fair, the movies are considered to be canon to the manga, as the events of the movies contradicts the anime in some ways. So what's the deal, you might say? Which is canon? Honestly, if you would ask me on a personal level, not in this video, I would say none of them are canon if you apply the canon test. Simply because Akira Toriyama isn't as involved as you might believe him to be. However, his name is splurged everywhere, and Toei Animation makes sure you know that Toriyama is behind everything, as if he's the puppet master behind the scenes. Though realistically, it's clear that Toriyama took the sidelines and passed the torch to Toyotaro. And yes, even though Toriyama still has his influence in the story, but he doesn't write it, he doesn't get involved in the details. In spite of that, Dragon Ball Super is considered by the official sources to be canon. Akira Toriyama believes it to be an official continuation of his manga, and Toei Animation don't shy away from reminding us that it is. So what I'm saying, in spite of having 2 different iterations of Dragon Ball Super, the creator wants to maximize profit by telling us it's canon, because let's face it, having Akira Toriyama coming out in interviews and hyping up movies makes Dragon Ball sell more. He gives it credibility. And they know that, thus they're trying to milk the series and make sure it doesn't fall apart like it did with Dragon Ball GT, where it was commonly known that Akira Toriyama had extremely little to do with it. In fact, to solidify some of what I'm saying, when Akira Toriyama was asked about the latest movie, he has confessed that he was trying to write a Dragon Ball movie but he didn't know what to do. So he was advised by his editors and people who were close to him to do Broly because he's popular and makes money. Akira Toriyama didn't even remember who that was, so he had to watch the old movies and draft his own version. So this kind of tells you the mentality behind the new Dragon Ball. I won't say anything more than that, I'll leave you to make your own conclusions. And perhaps one day we can make a video actually discussing the truth behind the Dragon Ball Super show and how it's actually run behind the scenes, because it certainly isn't the same as it was with the original Dragon Ball manga. However, if I would make a prediction here, is that probably in a few years from now, maybe 5 or even 10 years, I can genuinely see Dragon Ball Super being rebooted and having a more faithful adaptation to its manga version. And I feel like this new Dragon Ball Super show will become the new canon. It will have better animation and a more solid foundation and structure to its story. This is not unheard of course. Dragon Ball Kai is basically a more faithful adaptation to the Dragon Ball manga. Full Metal Alchemist, Brotherhood, Hunter x Hunter 2011, and JoJo Bizarre Adventure are all example to animes coming back with better animation and continuations to its predecessors. Of course, there is no guarantee, but with Dragon Ball still being such a hot property and new fans coming out every year, I think the probability will be soon a reality. To be honest, this is such a difficult topic to address fully in a video like this, because this video can genuinely be an hour and still not cover everything in great detail. So instead, I tried to condense everything to be more digestible for your minds. The main point I wanted to hammer here is that non-canon doesn't mean something is bad, and you may like whatever you want. So if you have any more questions about this topic, then please leave them in the comments down below. I'll try my best to respond to everyone. But most importantly, if you enjoyed this video and you're excited that MoodZi is finally back, then please like the video. Trust me, it really helps me, and it will make me create more content for you guys. So please, like I always tell you, like, comment, and subscribe. Peace.